live in interesting times. For the headlines. President is scheduled to visit those recently affected by floods and landslides brought about by Tropical Depression Usman in Bicol on Friday. Tens of thousands of tourists flee the Thai resort island of Koh Phangan and Koh Tao in a mass exodus ahead of Tropical Storm Pabuk, which is set to bring heavy rains, wind, and 7-meter waves. A Chinese lunar rover lands on the far side of the moon in a global first that boosts Beijing's ambitions to become a space superpower. And 4 billion miles from the sun floats Ultima Thule, an icy celestial body that NASA scientists say is aptly shaped like a giant snowman. We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda. Now to the news. President Duterte is scheduled to visit those recently affected by floods and landslides brought about by Tropical Depression Usman in Bicol on Friday, Malacanang said.
We're scheduled to visit tomorrow.
Saan, sir, particularly?
Sa Bicol area, Camarines Sur.
Ano pong balak pong gawin ni President Duterte?
Siyempre, we will check on the stricken areas para malaman natin kung ano pang kailangan gawin.
May mga ibibigay po ba siya, sir? Assistance?
Meron na mga naka-ready. Meron na nga nauna eh.
Pero will that be part pa rin?
No, kasama yan. Kasama lahat yan.
What kind of assistance? Or financial assistance or goods? Ano pong
Lahat na kailangan nila ibibigay ni Presidente.
Panelo admitted that the president was saddened by reports that there has been a lack of coordination between national government and local government units over the onslaught of the tropical depression, but noted that there are things you cannot control.
Natural lamang na malungkot ang Presidente sa mga panahon ng kalamidad. Pero ginawa naman natin ang lahat na maging handa. But there are things you cannot control. May mga dumarating na mga panahon na talaga magkakaroon ng mga trahedya.
Panelo cited instances such as the power outages in the Bicol region that may have caused the lack of coordination, but assured that the government will learn from its shortcomings.
And there are certain matters na hindi kagad nakaresponde at mayroon namang mga paliwanag din yung mga LGUs. So tingnan natin kung anong pwede pa natin gawin upang lalo tayo maging handa sa anumang panahon ng sakuna. Yeah, we will learn from whatever lesson we have seen. Ganun naman tayo eh. Pag medyo nagkamali o meron tayong mga dapat na gawin, gagawin natin.
The latest report from the Office of Civil Defense in the Bicol region showed that the death toll due to Usman has climbed to 105. The number of deaths being validated and attributed to Tropical Depression Usman has now climbed to 122, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council said in its update on Thursday noon. This is significantly higher than the 85 reported on Wednesday and was disclosed by the National Disaster Risk Reduction Management Council, or NDRRMC, in the update signed and released by Executive Director Ricardo Halad. In the same update, the agency said the death toll is still being validated by its management of the dead and the missing cluster. The fatalities are reported in Mimaropa, that's Mindoro, Marinduque, Romblon, and Palawan, Bicol, and Eastern Visayas regions. Also still being validated are reports of 28 missing persons and 60 injured, all in the Mimaropa, Bicol, and Eastern Visayas. Usman affected families are now pegged at 75,326, which is equivalent to 308,451 individuals residing in 624 barangays in Calabarzon, that's Cavite, Laguna, Batangas, and Quezon, Mimaropa, Bicol, and Eastern Visayas. Malacanang on Thursday assured the international community that it is still safe to travel to Mindanao amid international security warnings issued in the wake of the bomb attack in Cotabato City last December 31. Presidential spokesman Salvador Panelo made this remark after the United Kingdom and Australian governments issued advisories warning their nationals against traveling to Mindanao. Watch this.
You know, it's natural for any foreign government, or any government for that matter, to be concerned sa welfare, sa safety ng kanilang mga mamamayan. And we cannot blame them kung nagkaroon sila ng ganyang pananaw sapagkat nagkaroon ng bombahan sa Cotabato. But yun ay isolated case lang naman. So, insofar as the National Defense Secretary is concerned, it's very safe to travel sa Mindanao.
Department of National Defense spokesperson Arsenio Andalong said there is nothing new with the advisories since governments regularly issue them to their citizens who are overseas. Andalong said governments simply want to remind their citizens to take precautions when traveling to countries that have the presence of bandits and terrorists. Tens of thousands of tourists have fled the Thai resort islands of Koh Phangan and Koh Tao in a mass exodus ahead of tropical storm Pabuk, which is set to bring heavy rains, wind, and 7-meter waves, officials said. The islands, hugely popular with tourists, especially during the peak holiday and New Year season, have emptied out since Wednesday as tourists packed onto ferries bound for the southern Thai mainland, with swimming banned and boats set to suspend services. Pabuk, Thailand's first tropical storm in the area outside of the monsoon season for around 30 years, is poised to batter Koh Phangan and Koh Tao as well as Koh Samui on Friday night before cutting into the mainland. The acting mayor of Koh Tao, one of Southeast Asia's finest diving spots, said boats to Chumphon on the mainland were crammed with tourists, but several thousand guests were still on the island, likely to brave the storm. Pabuk was packing winds of 104 kilometers per hour, but wasn't likely to intensify into a full-blown typhoon, according to forecasters. British Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt discusses the ongoing Rohingya refugee crisis during his bilateral talks with Malaysian Foreign Minister Saifuddin Abdullah, saying that the UK is very committed in resolving the issue.
How both Malaysia and the United Kingdom are very committed to working with other countries to resolving this humanitarian crisis that's happening, the biggest humanitarian crisis in this region. The status quo is not acceptable or fair or humane or dignified. And so we have very fruitful discussions about what needs to happen to take the situation forward, and we intend to work with Malaysia and with ASEAN and at the United Nations to try and make some real progress in resolving this terrible situation.
He also comments on the sustainability of the Malaysian palm oil industry, saying that the UK will continue to follow very closely on the topic.
The way that Malaysia is making great effort to make sure that its palm oil industry is sustainable and that it is not developed at the expense of deforestation, which of course is very damaging to the environment. And so it was good to have the opportunity of hearing the progress that Malaysia is making in that respect. And from that point of view, this is an issue the UK will continue to follow very closely.
Weeks of fighting between ethnic Rakhine rebels and Myanmar's military has driven thousands of civilians from their homes, the UN said, as conflict intensifies in a state already ravaged by violence against the Rohingya Muslim minority. The army led a crackdown against the Rohingya in western Rakhine State in 2017, justifying the violence as necessary to flush out militants from the stateless minority. Those operations prompted the mass exodus of Rohingya to Bangladesh. But that conflict largely overshadowed the army's simmering fight with the Arakan Army, or AA, who want greater autonomy for Rakhine's Buddhist population in one of Myanmar's poorest states. The UN's humanitarian agency on January 1 said it was concerned by the recent surge in violence, which has displaced around 2,500 people and who are sheltering in monasteries and other communal spaces. The rebels accused the military, known in Myanmar as the Tatmadaw, of deploying heavy artillery against villagers. The number of confirmed dead from a New Year's Eve gas explosion in a Russian apartment block jumped to 37 on Thursday as rescuers recovered more bodies from the rubble of the partially collapsed building. 6 children were among the dead, the Emergency Situations Ministry said in a statement, and 4 people were still unaccounted for. Rescuers have been braving temperatures as low as minus 27 degrees Celsius, or that's minus 16 degrees Fahrenheit, to search through mangled concrete and metal at a site in the rural mountain city of Magnitogorsk. 6 people, including 2 children, have been rescued at the site, but no survivors have been found since Tuesday, when a 10-month-old boy was found in what officials described as a New Year's miracle. The explosion tore through the 10-story building in the industrial city nearly 1,700 kilometers east of Moscow in the early hours of Monday. The Soviet-era bloc was home to about 1,100 people, and the explosion destroyed 35 apartments, leaving dozens homeless. The United States is expecting to quickly get consular access to a former Marine arrested in Russia for alleged spying. To learn more about the charges, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Wednesday.
With respect to Mr. Whelan, who's being held, we are hopeful within the next hours we will get consular access to see him and get a chance to learn more. We've made clear to the Russians our expectation that we will learn more about the charges, come to understand what it is he's been accused of, and if the detention is not appropriate, we will demand his immediate return.
Russia's FSB security service said Monday it had detained the American who said was carrying out an act of espionage. The man was identified as Paul Whelan, 48, a former Marine now employed as Director of Global Security as U.S.-based automotive component supplier BorgWarner. Whelan's family said he was visiting Moscow to attend a wedding and denied he was a spy. Whelan faces up to 20 years in prison if found guilty, according to the ministry. Born in Canada, Whelan is Director of International Security for Borg Warner, a car parts manufacturer headquartered near Detroit. His brother David Whelan has told several U.S. media outlets. His arrest came after President Vladimir Putin accused Western nations of using espionage cases to try to undermine an increasingly powerful Russia. Protesters rally against corruption, and Peruvian Attorney General Pedro Chavarri accused of covering for politicians in an investigation involving Brazilian construction giant Odebrecht, as President Vizcarra delivered a bill to Congress that would declare a state of emergency in the public ministry. Here's more.
Estamos protestando porque hay malos jueces, malos fiscales, están corruptos. La corrupción tiene que terminar. ¡Basta ya!
Hemos dicho, es el proyecto de ley que modifica.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday offered a rather stark take on the situation in war-wracked Syria, summing it up in two words: sand and death.
So Syria was lost long ago. It was lost long ago. And besides that, we're talking about sand and death. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about, vast wealth. We're talking about sand and death. Yeah. I know somebody said 4 months, but I didn't say that either. I'm getting out. We're getting out of Syria. Look, we don't want Syria. Obama gave up Syria years ago when he didn't violate the red line. I did when I shot 59 missiles in, but that was a long time later. The Kurds, it's very interesting. Turkey doesn't like them, other people do. I didn't like the fact that they're selling the small oil that they have to Iran, and we asked them not to sell it to Iran. But the Kurds, our partners, are selling oil to Iran. We're not thrilled about that, okay? I'm not happy about it at all. But we want to protect the Kurds, nevertheless. We want to protect the Kurds. But I don't want to be in Syria forever. It's sand, and it's death. And we're winning. We're winning, okay? But just to answer your question, over a period of time, I never said I'm getting out tomorrow. I said we're pulling our soldiers out, and they will be pulled back in Syria, and then we're getting out of Syria. Yeah, absolutely. But we're getting out very powerfully.
The United States has about 2,000 troops, most of them special forces, deployed in northern Syria to fight ISIS and reinforced anti-jihadist forces. Top-ranking U.S. military officials had repeatedly warned against a hasty retreat from Syria, which they say could leave the door open in Syria to allies of President Bashar al-Assad, notably Russia and Iran. Trump's Defense Secretary Jim Mattis resigned over the decision to leave Syria, as did the administration's special envoy to the anti-ISIS coalition, Brett McGurk. We'll be back with more news right after this break.
Dear fellow citizens of the world, I wish you a happy, peaceful and prosperous new year. Last New Year, I issued a red alert, and the dangers I mentioned still persist. These are anxious times for many, and our world is undergoing a stress test. Climate change is running faster than we are. Geopolitical divisions are deepening, making conflicts more difficult to resolve, and record numbers of people are moving in search of safety and protection. Inequality is growing, and people are questioning a world in which a handful of people hold the same wealth as half of humanity. Intolerance is on the rise, trust is on the decline, but there are also reasons for hope. The talks on Yemen have created a chance for peace. The agreement signed in Riyadh in September between Ethiopia and Eritrea has eased long-running tensions and brought improved prospects to an entire region. And the agreement between the parties to the conflict in South Sudan has revitalized chances for peace, bringing more progress in the past 4 months than in the previous 4 years. The United Nations was able to bring countries together in Katowice to approve the work program for the implementation of the Paris Agreement on climate change. Now we need to increase ambition to beat this existential threat. It's time to seize our last best chance. It's time to stop uncontrolled and spiraling climate change. In recent weeks, the United Nations also oversaw landmark global agreements on migration and refugees that will help to save lives and overcome damaging myths. And everywhere, people are mobilizing behind the Sustainable Development Goals, our global blueprint for peace, justice and prosperity on a healthy planet. When international cooperation works, the world wins. In 2019, the United Nations will continue to bring people together, to build bridges and create space for solutions. We will keep up the pressure and we will never give up. As we begin this new year, let's resolve to confront threats, defend human dignity and build a better future together. I wish you and your families a peaceful and healthy new year.
Know the latest news and information here and abroad. In Aguila, Balita, track the latest happenings in the provinces in Aguila, Provincia. Be aware of important events in Asia, in ASEAN in Focus, and be updated in the biggest news around the world in Eagle News International. Tune into Mata ng Aguila and get the day's headlines and news that are sharp, accurate, and objective. Only here at Net 25.
Economic managers said the Philippines' successful bond issuances in the offshore bond markets in 2018 underscored the strong confidence of the international business community in the country's growth narrative under President Rodrigo Duterte's watch. Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez III said in a statement on Wednesday, the tight spreads of these bond issuances also illustrate confidence in the way the Duterte administration has soundly managed the country's fiscal program. For instance, he said the $2 billion 10-year global bonds issued last January received a tight spread of 37.8 basis points over the U.S. Treasuries, while the 1.48 or 46 billion renminbi 3-year Panda bonds floated in March fetched a spread of only 35 basis points over the benchmark. Dominguez said that with global uncertainties persisting as a result of the Federal Reserve's decision to continue raising interest rates, he had instructed National Treasurer Rosalia de Leon to move the timeline of future bond issuances ahead of schedule. The finance chief also said that with the positive and overwhelming response to the Philippines' Panda and Samurai bond issuances, the government is likely to return to these markets every 12 to 18 months from here on to establish a regular presence. President Donald Trump warned Wednesday the U.S. federal government may not fully reopen anytime soon as he stood firm on his demand for billions of dollars in funding for a border wall with Mexico. Addressing a cabinet meeting on the 12th day of the partial shutdown, Trump warned it could be a long time before the impasse is resolved. Here's more.
As long as it takes, I mean, look, I'm prepared. I think the people of the country think I'm right. I think the people of this country think I'm right. Could be a long time, and it could be quickly. Could be a long time. It's too important a subject to walk away from. The $5.6 billion approved by the House is such a small amount compared to the level of the problem. So we give money to countries, but we don't give money to our own country, which is another thing that I've been complaining about.
Members of Congress react as the partial U.S. government shutdown continues into its 12th day, with Republicans claiming Democrats want to keep delaying and Democrats saying President Donald Trump is having a temper tantrum. Trump has rejected compromises, including one proposed by Vice President Mike Pence, and renewed calls for $5 billion for his border wall.
We were hopeful that we could get more in the negotiation. I know the Vice President had sat down with Senator Schumer, had given him paper, had worked to try to come to an agreement, find common ground. I'd hope we'd get a little more of that today. Hopefully Friday we'll be able to get there.
They haven't put a counteroffer on the table. You saw the Vice President negotiating. The President and Vice President stayed here over the Christmas holidays, and there was absolutely no negotiation from the other side. So they want to keep delaying and have a government shutdown while President Trump has said he wants to secure the border.
And we hope that they will not use the American people, the millions who depend on these 8 departments, and the workers who are either not working or not getting paid as hostages to have a temper tantrum, pound the table and say it's our way, or we hurt all these people.
We're asking the president to open up government. We are giving him a Republican path to do that. Why would he not do it? Except, why would he not do it?
Trump is set to meet top Democratic lawmakers Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer in a bid to break the long impasse. It will be Trump's first meeting with Pelosi, who will take over as Speaker of the House on Thursday, and Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, since an acrimonious Oval Office meeting with the pair on December 11. Democrats say the border wall, one of Trump's key campaign promises, is a distraction from more complicated immigration problems and a tool for Trump to whip up support among his conservative base. The standoff resulted in swaths of the federal government being shut down over the holidays and for the foreseeable future until a deal is reached. Earlier, U.S. President Donald Trump wished all Americans a happy 2019 in a video posted on his Twitter account. President Trump had planned to spend the holidays at his private Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida, but put his trip on hold when the partial government shutdown began on December 22. Watch this.
Well, I'm at the White House working. You're out there partying tonight, but I don't blame you. Enjoy yourselves. We're going to have a great year. Have a really, really happy New Year.
Apple cut its revenue outlook for the first quarter of 2019, citing steeper than expected economic deceleration in China and emerging markets. The rare revenue warnings from Apple suggested weaker than anticipated sales of iPhones and other gadgetry, in part because of trade frictions between Washington and Beijing. While we anticipated some challenges in key emerging markets, we did not foresee the magnitude of the economic deceleration, particularly in Greater China, Apple Chief Executive Tim Cook said in a letter to investors. We believe the economic environment in China has been further impacted by rising trade tensions with the United States. It's one of the most famous museums in the world. Paris's Louvre is on track to break its record with 10 million visitors in 2018. In the aftermath of the November 13, 2015 terror attacks, visitor numbers were in free fall. But the Louvre has since recovered in part thanks to a refurbishment project which includes new signage in English. Foreign tourists may be returning in droves to visit the home of Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa, but the Louvre also wants to attract more locals. Just 29% of people who visited the museum in 2017 were French. They're put off by the museum's busy crowds, its size, and the scale of its collections. In a bid to attract a younger and more local audience, the Louvre will offer free nights visits on the first Saturday of each month, starting in January 2019. Scores of savvy travelers will be sipping heavily discounted champagne in first-class recliners on Cathay Pacific flights this year after the airplane agreed to honor tickets that were mistakenly sold at a fraction of their value. Airline and travel blogs went into overdrive on New Year's Eve after eagle-eyed shoppers noticed the carrier was offering first and business class tickets on its website from Vietnam to the United States and Canada for as little as $670. That represented a staggering discount. A first-class round trip would usually cost around $16,000, and a business-class flight is $4,000 to $6,000. The mistake concludes a challenging 2018 for Cathay Pacific as it tries to return to profitability after posting its first-ever back-to-back annual loss in March. The airline has struggled against competition, particularly from low-cost Chinese carriers covering Hong Kong, mainland China, and Southeast Asia. In October, Cathay Pacific was the subject of a data breach in its IT systems, jeopardizing the personal information of up to 9.4 million passengers. A month earlier, it had to send one of its planes back to the plant to the paint shop after spelling the airline's name Cathay Pacific on the side of the jet. It's missing an F. More news will be coming your way when Eagle News International returns.
Houston EBC correspondent, and I am wishing you all a Happy New Year, all the way here from Kansas City, Kansas. And I am 1 with 25.
Hi, I'm Jessica Ezekiel from Houston, Texas, and on behalf of our EBC Texas Bureau, we would like to wish you a Happy New Year. I am 1 with 25.
Happy New Year, everyone. I can't wait for what 2019 has to bring from EBC San Diego Bureau.
I'm Nicole Bedelia here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and on behalf of our EBC Texas Bureau, would like to wish you a Happy New Year. I am 1 with 25.
Hi guys, I'm Ariel.
And I'm Kenneth. And we're your new hosts for The Break Room.
So please watch us every Monday at 7:30 to 8 in the evening. We are 1 with 25.
Pep News, Linggo, alas 4 hanggang alas 5 ng hapon.
ASEAN in Focus, Monday to Friday, 2 to 2:30 p.m.
A Chinese lunar rover landed on the far side of the moon on Thursday in a global first that boosts Beijing's ambitions to become a space superpower. The Chang'e 4 probe touched down and sent a photo of the so-called dark side of the moon to the Kekiao satellite, which will relay communications to controllers on Earth, China's National Space Agency said on its website. Beijing is pouring billions into its military-run space program with hopes of having a crewed space station by 2022 and of eventually sending humans to the moon. The Chang'e 4 lunar probe mission launched in December from the southwestern Xichang Launch Center. Unlike the rear or near side of the moon that offers many flat areas to touch down on the far side, is the mountainous and rugged. The moon is tidally locked to Earth in its rotation, so the same side is always facing Earth. Chang'e's 4 static lander is carrying 2 cameras, a German-built radiation experiment called LND, and a spectrometer that will perform low-frequency radio astronomy observations. Scientists believe the far side could be an excellent place to perform radio astronomy because it is shielded from the radio noise of Earth. The spectrometer work will aim to test this idea. "4 billion miles from the sun floats Ultima Thule, an icy celestial body that NASA scientists announced Wednesday is aptly shaped like a giant snowman. The first detailed images beamed back from the U.S. agency's New Horizons mission allowed scientists to confidently determine the body was formed when 2 spheres or lobes slowly gravitated towards each other until they stuck together, a major scientific discovery. The New Horizons spacecraft on Tuesday flew past Ultima Thule, which was discovered via telescope in 2014 and is the farthest and potentially oldest cosmic body ever observed by a spacecraft.
You know, it was just a day and a half ago, barely 36 hours, that New Horizons swept down over Ultima Thule and a technical success beyond anything ever attempted before in spaceflight. And this is and it's only really the size of something like Washington, D.C., and it's about as reflective as garden variety dirt. And it's illuminated by a sun that's 1,900 times fainter than it is outside on a sunny day here on the Earth. So we were basically chasing it down in the dark at 32,000 miles an hour, and all that had to
Ultima Thule's surface reflects light about as much as garden variety dirt, he said, as the sun's rays are 1,600 times fainter there than on Earth. The body is roughly 19 miles long and completes its own rotation in about 15 hours. NASA dubbed the larger lobe Ultima and the other, which is about 3 times smaller, Thule. Carly Howitt, another researcher of the mission, noted that we can definitely say that Ultima Thule is red, perhaps due to irradiation of ice.
As we're speaking, data is streaming in on the LISA data, which gives us our composition information so we can map the surface composition. And we're all very interested, or maybe it's my own bias, but I'll say I'm very interested in understanding what the surface composition of this object is. There's no way to make anything like this type of observation without having a spacecraft there. It's why this exploration is so critical.
Roger Federer takes the honors in the much-anticipated mixed doubles clash with fellow great Serena Williams in what the latter describes as the match of her career at the Hopman Cup in Perth. Here's more.
I was so excited, and literally it was the match of my career. I don't know, just playing someone so great and someone that you admire so much, and a match that actually means something, you know, it's not often that that happens, and so just years and years of admiring him and just being level with him and the same point of our career and being the same age, and you know, it was really cool to actually play someone still in their prime like me, both in our primes. Like this doesn't happen, so it was really cool.
This time of year, the biting cold can be very intimidating. But our friends in the Sunshine State of Florida, winter also means outdoor fun. Eagle News correspondent Angelo Corpus reports.
What's up, Nesters? We're here at Curtis Hickson Waterfront Park, and we're doing winter recreational activities that Floridians don't often do, and that's ice skating. Let's go. For most winter days, cozying up indoors on the couch with a cup of hot chocolate doesn't sound like a bad idea. However, there's still thrilling moments when participating in outdoor winter recreational activities, like ice skating. Ice skating in Florida? Yeah, you can ice skate in Florida. Courtesy of Ice Rink Events, the city of Tampa was given the opportunity to enjoy this outdoor winter recreational activity.
It's a way to bring winter down to everyone in Florida. We like to have more festivity, and the perfect way they thought they could do this was through an ice rink. When everyone thinks about ice skating, when they think about winter, you think about snow. And what better way to do this than an ice skating rink?
There are many benefits to ice skating, such as improving balance, flexibility, and relieving stress. Floridians like myself gave this a shot, and I must say, it was very exhilarating. At first, it was terrifying. I started off my first 30 minutes holding on to the edges of the ice rink. Great! It's cold, but you're sweating. I don't know why. I didn't feel like letting go, but because the rink was crowded near the edges, I had to make a big boy move by letting go. I gradually got used to skating on without depending on the edges, and I eventually hit my comfort zone. I love the wind blowing against my face. Let's go. Just keep going. We have another one half. Let's go.
We'll do again.
Maybe not. Who knows?
For me, yes.
By the way, defeating the fear of falling, I truly valued my ice skating experience. So for all the beginners out there, don't be afraid to try it out. Go check out an outdoor ice rink near you in your own city. Signing off from Tampa Bay, Florida, I'm Angelo, and I'm always 1 with 25.
Thank you, Angelo. That's all for tonight. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards on Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us. And I'm 1 with 25.